Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryang Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome back. The topic is wise person, Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna means the one that is firm in knowledge, but not just firm in any kind of situation, firm across the board. So it's easy to say you're firm at your house or firm at your particular workplace where you're comfortable, but that's not necessarily wise, because to be firm in knowledge means you are firm across different situations, especially those that you are unfamiliar with. This is firmness in knowledge. Therefore, we're not speaking of one who is situationally confident, but the one who sees the world as their home. Thereby, you're carrying this knowledge at the forefront of your mind that's keeping you upright, and you're able to navigate this world intelligently. Why? Because you don't let the world throw you off so easily, because you have practiced this on and on and on. And thereby, a sthita prajna is the one who doesn't get thrown off so easily amidst the storms and the winds of the world. And we also said that this person is not overly sensitive to what other people think about you or your abilities or your ability to be a father, a mother, to teach, to listen, to learn, to correct mistakes. In other words, they're not overly sensitive about being praised or criticized. It doesn't mean that you don't listen. It means that you still use the world's opinions and inputs as a learning platform, and you use it to the best of your abilities, because the world always sees something that you don't see in yourself. Thereby, the world becomes your platform for feedback, for making those micro adjustments in yourself. And those very micro adjustments is what makes you more discerning, sharper, and just generally more cheerful. So you don't get constantly thrown off by these subtle situations that are constantly challenging you, throughout your life. And he is also, we said in verse 58, this sthita prajna is like a turtle. And we said that a turtle is very unique in the sense that a turtle doesn't always keep their limbs in outwards, nor do they always keep their limbs inwards. So this means that we often think that there is, that a spiritual person is only introverted. But there are two kinds of people if you take this into a, personality complex. And that is, there are those who are extroverted. So this means they are always out there in the world, participating, active, engaged, doing good, promoting, doing some good causes, working, hanging out with friends, whatever it is, it's always mostly out there. And we call these, quote, extroverted. But we also have those who are called introverted. Now, these types are, more of the, right, intro, right? They're inside. They're more kind of, closed down and more quiet and less to say, and more reserved. So we kind of have these stereotypes of extroverted and introverted. And we often think that the spiritual person is which one of these two? The extro or the intro? You see this? So now you got a problem here. You got a spiritual person who is a stereotype, but the stereotype is not true to what it really is. An extroverted person for you is one thing, extroverted person for me is another thing. Same thing with the introverted person. So now we say that a spiritual person or a sthita prajna is introverted. So this means they are like a recluse. They are always indoors. They are kind of closed down. They don't speak to people. They are detached. They have a very simple life. They get rid of things, very simple clothing. They kind of, have minimal friends in their life. And thereby it becomes this convoluted image where you have this one-sided approach of a, quote, spiritual person. And Krishna says spiritual person is not one or the other, but both. Not just introverted, not just extroverted, but both. And this is crucial. Give you an example. Suppose your teacher, your Vedanta teacher, was only an introvert. That means all they do is just spend time at home and they reflect. They're called an armchair philosopher. And they're just reflecting indoors, 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 really afraid to go out, not confident to go out there to negotiate, to kind of, expose oneself out there. Would you appreciate that? You'll only be getting half-cooked wisdom, wouldn't you? Similarly, if your teacher was constantly going out there in the world, active, doing good causes, and participating, so much out there, initially it seems like, wow, this person is amazing. They're always out there and they're so active and they're so capable. But that person who's always out there, they don't have the time to come back, be like a turtle, and reprogram and reassess and reevaluate everything that has happened, and to integrate that and to rethink what unique place do I have in this world. Am I kind of, doing these things for somebody else, or am I doing it just for me? Or what is the real purpose behind all of these so-called activities that I'm doing out there? So this means a wise person is both, because you need, after coming out, to come back, close your eyes and recognize, or not just close, but however you think, recognize what is my unique place in this grand scheme of things. And this is so crucial to understand about what makes a wise person. It is not one, it is not the other, it is both. Therefore, you become self-reflective, and that self-reflection then gets into the world and you test yourself. You test yourself how well, how deep your knowledge is established. After doing that, come back. A turtle stays not outside, stays not inside, but retracts its limbs and takes its limbs out. Retracts its limbs, takes its limbs out. This is called a balanced person. Thereby, you and I have both met just an extroverted person. Have you ever met a very extroverted person who is like really just extroverted? Like, what is one trait, if you notice, about a highly extroverted person that you notice? What is one prominent trait about them?
Full of energy.
Definitely. What else? What about their mind?
They talk a lot.
What else? What about their focus?
Very active, very
focused.
talkative.
Yeah. What about their attention span to stay at one topic?
Very little.
Yeah. What about their ability to, what about their creativity? Okay, it's okay, maybe good. Okay, what about an introverted person? What's one characteristic of an introverted, highly introverted person?
Very quiet.
Focus, ability to focus.
Happy
Be
with
very
himself.
focused.
Happy with themselves. What else?
They can be very focused.
They can be very focused. We said that. Anything else? What about awkwardness? Have you ever noticed that? A little bit of social awkwardness. What else? Sandra had her hand up.
Aloofish.
They are not popular, like the
Yeah.
extrovert.
Now that's the interesting one. So if I see, and you need people, right, to find out, to test your hypotheses, to test your wisdom. So you need people, in the world to challenge you a little bit, because it also has a little bit of danger of becoming, what do they call it, a righteousness, right? So I am right and I'm so convinced about my notions, until you get out there and speak to a different kind of a methodology, you will never know, right, where your gaps are. Therefore, if I don't know where my gaps is, I live indoors completely convinced that somehow my vision of the world is true, but it's only a bubble. Just like for the extroverted person, it's always out there, be popular, make these connections, and do all these fantastic things. And they're very fun. I get it. I had, I had this amazing extroverted friend. he was making deals, right? He invited me once and he says, "Come over, Andre, I want to see you." And I saw him, and he was having an interview with a model because she was an actress. And I was thinking, okay, wait a minute. So you invited me here. I wanted to, speak to my friend because we met, and you're, putting me in front of this actress. I don't care who she is. I want to speak to you. And so he said, no problem. She's leaving in 5 minutes. And then we sit down in front of a bar outside and we order a coffee. And now he invited another actress. She turns out to be a porn star. And so he's like, oh, why don't you just wait here with Andre? Let me go to another person and make $1 million deal with that old 65-year-old woman because she's going to be $1 million investor for my movie. And then he goes over there to that woman. Now the porn star, I'm stuck with the porn star and I have to make some awkward conversation with her. And and she thinks it's my fault for putting her, in that place. So she gets angry at me. I just say, look, I have no idea what's going on here. My friend just invited me. So he's always moving, right? And he's just like this actor, total pose. So she gets up very angry. She storms to him, it's like, how could you put me there? You're wasting my time. And I go up to my friend and say, look, didn't you notice that when she was sitting there, you were speaking to her for 5 minutes and you were trying to assess whether she's the right person? I knew, because I was right next to my friend, I knew within the first 5 seconds. Now, what's the difference? How did I know that even though I didn't speak to her? Because if you're reflective, self-reflective, you see through people. There's a certain ability to see through people even before they say anything. Whereas an extroverted person, they have to go through a long interview, a conversation, all this nonsense. So you see how you lose out on one or the other if you're just extroverted or just introverted. And this is the beautiful thing about a wise person. They speak from experience, not just from indoors, but also from outdoors. Therefore, there's a certain trust factor that you can have in a wise person. There's a certain ability to say, hey, you have gone through the pains. You did fall down. You did learn to get up. And not just once, but over and over again. You don't live in a safe place where everyone's just worshiping your feet and it's all just beautiful and everyone's taking your chair inwards and outwards and putting food in front of your table and you're just sort of in this perfectly designed environment. You have to deal with your own, your own kind of, you have to deal by yourself. You're nobody out there and you still have to be enthusiastic, find a way to hold yourself upright and find your own confidence. This is the beauty of a balanced person. Therefore, what else? Now, Rumi, he was a poet and he backs up Krishna in this introvert-extrovert statement, but he has a different way of saying it, Rumi. So Rumi says a person in their life goes through 4 general stages of their journey to maturity. And he says the first stage that we all go through is where we feel like a victim in this world and we need someone or something to blame. We need the world to blame. We need the government to blame. We need the neighbors to blame. We need our past to blame, our childhood and our teachers to blame of our school or our friends that we grew up with. And we can all relate with this. This is the young years, but these young years can also, continue in the older years. So this means that this person, is still looking out there, extrovert. Now, the next stage is, he says, through the course of time, you become self-reflective. So this means that you start to ask more questions about yourself, about your responses, about your do's and don'ts, what's truth, what is falsehoods, and how to use critical thinking, which is a very good topic in Bao's book, which I read and I assessed, right, Bao? You have written a book. I don't even look at the title. I just downloaded it and just went through the chapters. So, and Bao has this nice, every chapter goes through the ability to, how important it is to use your critical thinking skills to just ask questions and not just sort of succumb to the authority. Just because the authority says that, it is therefore true. So you have to learn to use this capacity of yours. So this is called self-reflection. Now, most think that this is where spirituality ends. Hey, I'm now a self-reflective person. Now, what is self-reflective? It is introvert. That's why you'll find a lot of spiritual seekers where, in what stage? The introvert stage. This is only stage 2. Self-reflective, thoughtful, inquirous. This is stage 2. Now, stage 3 is after you have done enough, if your inquiry was proper and it was holistic, it included not just your little personal needs, but it also included the larger whole, then you will come to stage 3 and you will go to the very same world from which you introverted yourself from. You will go out and now you're able to give and receive love in a much more healthy, resilient, and mature fashion. You're able to give yourself to other people because you worked on yourself enough to know what is your unique place in this world. What are your unique strengths? Remember last week, strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. What are your unique strengths and where do you shine? And you have no problem shining that to the world. And that can only take place if you introvert. That is the tortoise inwards. Thereby, this now becomes again, right, a participant, an active participant in the world. Now, what's the last stage? The last stage is after you have tested out your stage 2, which is your introvert stage, your self-reflective stage, and you've gone out into the world. That means you've had enough experience to test it out. What happens? You get more feedback. It's not fairy tale. It's just more feedback, more pain, more falls, more cursing, more kind of like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? It's fights and apologies and forgiveness and so on. That has trained you even more to the point where, as we say, or Dayananda used to say, you have settled accounts with Ishvara. You have settled accounts with the world to the point where people notice this. They notice you're a balanced person, a holistic person, enough so that you become an inspiration for others to listen. You speaking and others listen. And you're wondering, but I'm saying the same thing, you know, all the time. What are people listening? I'm saying, just repeating myself, but somehow people just listen to you. And this is the stage 4 where you become an inspiration for your circle of influence. It doesn't have to be a big circle. It's a small circle. But nevertheless, you have taken care of yourself through the prior 4 stages. You saw the negativities and the challenges of stage 1, that there's no solution in blaming the world or the government. It has to come back onto yourself. What little can I do right now? Where is my place in this situation? What is expected of me in this situation? And then stage 3, you go into the world, and again, you get challenged there. And then stage 4, last stage, if it is to be, you become an inspiration for other people. And there has no age group. There's no rules to this, how old you are, how young you are. It's just the amount of work that you have done. Therefore, you have earned your efforts. Your efforts have given you a tremendous amount of punyam. And it's not something that's just foul and you're, quote, lucky. It's just that you have relentlessly gone into the world and done your work. The more you fail, the faster you rise. And every time you fail, it's like, hey, I'm fine. It's not a big deal. Which is why Krishna also says they do not grieve. Now, he says, I know Pankaj, he says they do not grieve, in fact, this was verse 11, right? Verse 11 or 12, the wise do not grieve. He doesn't have, is not affected by adversities. This was verse 56. And it says, it doesn't have sorrow, doesn't have happiness, doesn't have fear, doesn't have anger. But you have to pause and look at that statement deeper. Doesn't have this, doesn't have that. No, doesn't have unhealthy sorrow, unhealthy grief, unhealthy anger, unhealthy fear. And last week we talked about what unhealthy fear is. It is whereby you catastrophize a situation of something in the future happening without having any real evidence about it. Or unhealthy sorrow, where you take something that is unpleasant and then you build a narrative around it, and it grows and grows and grows and becomes very hard to cope with. Or unhealthy happiness, where you find your happiness through comparison with someone else who is less privileged. This is unhealthy happiness. Look at this. You can't even say doesn't have unhealthy happiness or sorrow, because you and I know that life isn't this black or white. You will have unhealthy sorrow, unhealthy fear, unhealthy happiness, unhealthy anger. You will have that. So even if you do have that, that is fine. There's always another chance for a slight tweak. And this is the uniqueness of a wise person. Relentless, consistent, non-ending tweaking of one's failures, of one's seeming failures. In fact, let's not even call them failures, but indicators where changes need to be, where small tweaks need to be adjusted. What are those small parts, those unconscious gremlins, unconscious monsters that are sort of just, clinging onto my brain, pulling this brain down? Where do I need to take the scissors and cut? That is done through going to the world and letting the world tell you where you get triggered, letting the world a window into your own unconscious mind. There's no other way to access your unconscious mind than through the world's participation, because that's what they do. That's what we do for each other. We let each other know where do I need to cut those, take the scissors and cut. Now, one thing I want to say is these 4 stages of Rumi, they can be easily, like anything in this world, manipulated. And you can easily say this, hey, so I'm in stage 1. Suppose you're in stage 1 and you say, I am blaming the world. I want to let you know now how dangerous it is to skip one of these stages. I am in the stage 1, but I think I am in stage 4. Look at this. So the person by default is still at their maturity of blaming the government, blaming the people. But this person has been saying this for such a long time that they become an inspiration for others. Therefore, a movement gets formed. You have a follower. I'm not going to say the full name, but their name is A. Jones. Now, this person is in 2012, December 14th, there was a Sandy Hook shooting in America where 20 children died. And like many things that, this fella says, he says that this was all just a cover-up and they were paid actors. So what happened is, suppose you're a parent of your child and your child is one of those 20 victims who was shot dead. And now people randomly start throwing bricks at night in your window because they think you're one of those paid actors who was under the cover-up. And your life is made miserable because of somebody out there who was saying that this was whole just, a cover-up operation. This was just paid actors. And anyway, what happened was this person was then charged $1.5 billion for the damages. But by then, it doesn't really matter because those 20 families, all the damage has already been done. Their lives have been made hell. So what happened here? Look at this. The person is in a stage 1, blaming the world, blaming the government, and yet where are they operating from? Stage 4. They're an inspiration for millions around the world. So you see, anything in this world can be twisted and made into a total mess. Thereby, this is, why am I saying this now? Because it shows you the danger of skipping anything where it is not to be skipped. Krishna doesn't skip things. He tells us everything has to be addressed. To skip extroversion is the same thing. To skip introversion is the same thing. Less dramatic though, but it is the same principle. Thereby, you can see why the wise person is like a turtle.
What I was saying is there is a book called I Am Okay, You Are Okay. And it describes 4 stages of development of human psychology. First stage is I am not okay, you are not okay. Then I am okay, you are okay. Like this, it goes through the 4 stages. So what you said, these 4 stages sounds to me similar to these 4 stages of psychology.
Now, but because we're both okay, that means we can both move on to the next verse now, doesn't it? What does the turtle metaphor teach us about the wise person's relationship with the world?
Interact when it is required to interact. You need to go out and experience things, and then you need to come back and reflect on those things,
Okay.
and then go out again and do it all again.
I would say being part of the world, because you are part of the world, but also coming back to retreat and looking at the teachings of the Shastra to put everything into perspective. So that's the retreating of it, is really just a mental understanding of the reality and then putting it into perspective and putting the correct value on things and situations.
Good. So in other words, you're having context for your teaching, and the context, or that you give meaning to your wisdom through the world. You give it, and when you give meaning to it, you give it more strength, more glue.
So it's not a physical retreating, it's just the cognitive understanding of the reality, and then acting, doing what needs to be done in the world at the same time.
I'm thinking you could also expand the metaphor somewhat, because a turtle is actually quite quiet and methodical as well.
Slow, takes time to think about things. You could look at it like that.
Yeah, I was also thinking about more like, you're available for the world, like as a person, like as a mother or a daughter or whatever, as an employee, etc. But at the same time, you need to do self-care, and you need to lay your boundaries and things. So that's why you go inward and know that at the end of the day, the peace is within you.
There was once a statement that said, if you start to give more than you can, that's when anger starts to come. That's when frustration starts to come. So you have to know, when have I given enough? When can I just pull back? So it's almost like being patient with the children who are screaming and screaming, but they've gone through a certain kind of, threshold that is no longer in your capacity to remain composed. So in that moment, you have to recognize that moment and take a moment, actually go out and take care of yourself, and then you can come back in. Right? Otherwise, explosion is around the corner.
Yeah, I think that some of the responses have been like focused on people that might be naturally extroverted, and as a naturally introverted person, if you don't go out into the world, then you really don't have any way of understanding whether you're growing yourself, because you've got nothing to go by.
Okay. So what Michael is saying is that you don't really know how well, you can't gauge yourself that well unless you have exposure to the world. And thereby you don't know where and what tweaks to make. Thereby we can spend a lot of time wasting on something that you're actually quite great at. Whereas the world will tell you, no, you need to work with, being more kind of present and be more creative in your conversation, perhaps. So this wise person who we have spoken of so far, verse 60 will say, even for him or her, the senses take them away. Not something you would expect, because you would think they are totally onto it 24/7. No, let's see what verse 60 says. Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipashchitaha Indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha.
Indeed, the powerful senses forcefully take the mind away, Kaunteya, Arjuna, of even the person who makes effort, who sees clearly.
Thereby, as we said, even of one who has this capacity to discern what is to be done, how are the senses? How do they describe these senses? Well, there's a word here called pramathini. Pramathini. And pramathini means harassing and tearing. So it's quite a strong graphic word. The senses are so ferocious, and they are strong and powerful and forceful. They're harassing the person. They are tearing the person to stay put, and yet the senses are just kind of harassing you, poking you. Come on, have a little bit, have a little taste, have a little see, have a little sound, go. And so it's and it says here that those senses, they take you on a ride without asking for your permission. Suppose I or someone else asked you for something, and they say, come with me. I didn't give you permission, you say to me. I didn't give you permission. You'll probably get angry. You know, if I keep on asking you for things, no, I didn't give you permission to make decisions for me. Well, guess what? Your senses are doing things without asking for your permission all the time. So if you were to convert that, that would be an angry person 24/7. What are you angry at? At my senses. Why are you angry at your senses? Because they are tearing me apart. They're constantly getting me to do things without asking for my permission. Hey, can I go online and just, spend 5 hours? Well, I don't care what you say or not. I'm just going to go and spend 5 hours watching TV, irrespective of your opinion. Even for a wise person, it's the same thing. And who is a wise person? Vipaschit, of a discriminating person, someone who's got critical thinking skills. Even them, the senses are a great source of harassment. And thereby, it is not at all easy to focus on, 24/7 on Ishvara and always be doing the right thing. So why is this important, this verse? Is it just to kind of tell you a fun fact? No. If you got issues with your senses constantly taking you on for a ride, you're not the only one. Everyone has got the same challenges to deal with. So this is a universal phenomena. And a nice story from Panchatantra called The Monk and the Mango Tree will illustrate this. So there was a monk who was a recluse, and he was moving from place to place. And he found a very shady, nice, soft, grassy spot to sit down, and so he did. But very soon, there was a fragrance of the mango tree that bore the most sweetest fruits in the region. And so this fragrance would reach the monk's nose, and the monk would initially notice this. So initially he thought, that's okay, this is an expression of Ishvara. This is Ishvara's glory, thought the monk. This is how it all starts, isn't it? However, since the wind was blowing his directions constantly every day, it started to become more and more noticeable until the aroma, the fragrance, totally overtook him. So eventually, he was no longer thinking, all that is here is Ishvara, and this is a beautiful expression of Ishvara. He was now thinking, I wonder when's the mango tree going to fall? Now there's a gust of wind, and every time there's a gust of wind with a certain strength, one mango tree falls. So now he became a mathematician, calculating when's the next mango tree going to fall. I wonder how long it would take me to get up that tree in a topmost branch. Would I fall? Could those branches hold me? So he was starting to think all of these things about a mango tree. And his guru saw this from a distance, that, you make little twitches and little frowns and so on. So you can see this on the face. So he got the monk out of meditation and says, hey, open your eyes. Come and look at those trees over there. You see those monkeys in the distance? They're constantly jumping from tree to tree, totally enslaved by those mangoes. They're disregarding their safety of falling down. They're fighting over each other. They're spilling blood over each other. They're hitting each other with hammers, all just to get those mango trees. And the monk was observing this. And the monk thought, this is not any different from my own mind, because those monkeys are disregarding the well-being of others, disregarding the well-being of themselves. They're totally enslaved and totally focused on just the mango tree. The mango tree is the mangoes are their only existence. And the monk thought, this is not any different from the mind, because with the monkeys, you can see them actually jumping from object to object, totally enslaved by the mangoes. But that's exactly what my mind is doing. You just don't see my body doing it. So what's the real difference? So the monk thought about this, and he realized that my mind, therefore, is completely enslaved by this object. So he got some words from his guru. He decided to see his mangoes as just another object popping up in his consciousness, right? Just another object like the sky. You look at the sky, you don't have likes or dislikes towards it. You just look at the sky, yeah, sky. There's no like towards the sky. There's no dislike towards the sky. So he decided to see this mango like the sky, just another object that you have no likes or dislikes towards. So he closed his eyes and he realized, wow, so this is possible. I can look at this object. The object hasn't changed at all. I can just look at the object in a different perspective, and the object immediately releases its harassment. Therefore, nothing has changed, only how you look at the object has. And so this is what the monk has taken away. And so he was very glad that he succeeded. So what is the similarity or the parallel between the monkeys and the mind?
So always jumping from one idea to the next, one place to the other.
You see, so what Stephen is saying is that unlike the physical objects, for us, it's no different. It's mental objects in a form of thoughts.
When there's an object, like a desirable object, then the mind and the monkeys will do anything to get it, regardless of self-harm or harm to others.
Yeah, this is another good point.
Never satisfied. Right?
Never satisfied. Good. There's always one mango. Very nice.
That's right.
I think that's why they call it a monkey mind. And I think one of the things that calms that is meditation. And when you focus in or you focus on a mantra or something, you stop that monkey mind that thoughts jump around all over the place.
Super, super. This is why we have japa, right? The japa is taking a mantra like Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And every time your mind, monkey mind, as Ellie says, goes, or as Stephen says, goes to another thought, Om Namah Shivaya, thought, Om Namah. And you do this through time and you train. No. Mind, you cannot just jump from mango to mango. Every time you do, I will intentionally, deliberately bring you back. And this is what japa is specifically for, training this monkey mind. You don't get born with it, by the way. You don't get born with a mind that doesn't do this. We all get born with a monkey mind. Why? Because we all get born with samskaras. And samskaras make you value certain objects.
So I like the way you mentioned that how objects can harass your mind.
Yeah.
It's not about the thought, because thoughts also keep coming, but there are a few thoughts of these objects. It just goes in a circle, vicious circle of, oh, if I have that object, this is what it's going to do. This is what I can do with it. So I think that's where, for me personally, I have to pay attention, because
yes, indeed. In other words, you put excess value onto an object, and thereby it redraws attention over and over again. So you have to reassess the value of that object that is harassing you. In fact, this will be spoken in more detail in verse 62 and 63. We have not done verse 59. Verse 59. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate.
Okay, for the one who does not feed the senses come back to oneself with the longing remaining behind. Having seen Brahman, when the self is known, even the longing goes away.
So this verse is just a small intermediary verse, will tell you what is the journey from going from an ordinary person to this sthita prajna. And see, it says here, for the one who does not feed the senses come back to oneself. So this is very interesting. This means, why do the senses keep on harassing us over and over again? Because we keep on feeding them, we keep on exposing them, and giving unrestricted access to these valuable objects that keep on kind of watering these senses again and again. So it keeps on giving them strength. And see, this verse wants to say, because it says here, he does not feed the senses come back to oneself. Is this an overnight thing? No, this is a long time. Therefore, transformation doesn't happen overnight. What does this mean? There's a nice metaphor of this. Suppose you're driving on a highway, and on the highway, it's very simple to drive. There's no traffic. You don't have to do a lot of things. Just turn left or right when you have to take the exit, take the cruise control, right? You stay on one track, same speed. So you don't have to think very much. It's more of a habitual thing that you do on a highway. Now, suppose someone tells you, hey, for once in a while, instead of taking what's called a super highway of habits, the highway of habits. Take the country road of wisdom. This is a metaphor name. Now, a country road, what is a country road? Well, those who live in the country more out of the city, you would know what a country is. It's more kind of little streets. There's a lot more to see. You stop by, there are little shops, there's ponds, there's lakes. The vibe is different. It challenges you to take different roads. Is that easy? If you just sort of just swirl over from the highway straight into the country? No, it's not easy. But what is the benefit of this? Why is it called country road of wisdom? Because it teaches you something. It shows you something that highway of habits doesn't. So what does it show you? It shows you a lot more things, a lot more alternatives that you haven't seen before. Therefore, it shows you that by turning away from the highway, super highway of habit, where it's very easy just to go, and it feels like, no, I'm getting there quickly, but what's the cost of getting there quickly? You miss out on the wisdom because you're not challenged. You're not taking the new paths that you haven't taken before. It's just sort of, habitual, easy. I know this, I'm an expert. So it gives you an impression that you are an expert. That is only an impression on the basis of habit. You take that turn on a country road of unfamiliarity and you have to think now. Therefore, this is never comfortable. Is it? Is it comfortable? No. But what's the benefit? So you have to be very clear. What do I want? Habit and easy, or unfamiliar, slightly unfamiliar, doesn't have to be completely, slightly unfamiliar, but wisdom. This is another nice trait of a sthita prajna. And I want to give you a real life scenario of the non-ease of going from the highway of habits into the country road of wisdom, just something more relatable. This is a true story. There was a mother who had a daughter, and her daughter used to always say bad things about her and used to embarrass her mother in front of, guests. So the mother would take her to friends, and then the daughter would just stay there and say, Mom, you never cook for me. You don't care for me. All those little things and Mom was very hurt by this. And she was, I believe, a divorcee. So she had a daughter. So she found this very painful. And I think the daughter was about teenagers. So it's not so easy to shut him up anymore. So the mother decided to go to a counselor and ask, my daughter keeps on embarrassing me. She doesn't respect me. It could be your son also. She doesn't kind of give me the attention that I need, the love that I need. I'm doing so much for her and she's not giving me that. She's not reciprocating. What do I do about this? And the therapist asked, well, have you told her about this, that you feel hurt? And the mother says no. And the therapist said, why not? And the mother replied, because I don't want to stir things up. I don't want to rock the boat. Because if I say something, it's going to sort of compromise our already fragile relationship. Now, the therapist says something very interesting. He said, do you think that your daughter, every time she insults you, that she's actually finding that enjoyable? No, not at all. She may look like it, but deep down, your son or daughter is feeling exactly what you're feeling. What you're feeling as a mother, that pain of unfairness and mistreatment, that pain is exactly what your daughter or son is feeling. And so the therapist said, so look, the truth is the only solution you have is to say something. And then the mother naturally said, because it's the habit, just get comfortable in your discomfort. So now the mother was asked to get a little bit uncomfortable, the country road of wisdom. She was asked to go up to the daughter and point out that this is not right, and the mother will not put up with it. And she has to say something at least, not what, but she has to do something about it. So initially the mother was resisting, and then the therapist made it a little bit easier for her. She said, look, you have to remind yourself, number one, it's not going to be easy saying this suddenly, because you have learned to be comfortable in your discomfort. Second of all, even if you say something, there is no guarantee that your daughter may reciprocate, but at least you know that you have done something different, and remind yourself that you are doing this to repair, or at least attempt to repair the relationship. You're doing this for the good, the long-term good of the relationship. And the mother thought about this because the mother found it very hard to suddenly approach her daughter because of the status quo that you have. But when she was reminded that I'm actually doing this in the attempt to help the relationship, it's a good intention. My intention is to help. It made it so much easier for the mother. She was empowered to follow through. And she was told, even if, remember, you do what is to be done, there is no guarantee your daughter or your son will comply. But at least, what have you taken away? What have you gained now? You have gained at least a little bit of peace that you have done your part. And that little bit of peace gives you the strength to put boundaries anyway. Because before, you didn't say anything. And you always held this guilt. I didn't say anything, therefore I'm not supposed to set boundaries. And if I do, it's out of line. But now you say, look, I have done my part. The daughter, she didn't comply. It doesn't matter. But I can relieve this sense of duty that was bugging me. That was like a little needle that was harassing me. And I can relieve that out of my own system. And that ironically makes the mother stronger to say something anyway. There's a story of mine, I think I shared it before, where when we moved from South Africa to Australia, 2001, my dad was very religious, and that was nice. But in Australia, they became kind of, wealthy. And so I noticed my dad, especially, he started to move away from religion more and more and more. And I felt like, for a long time, for many years, like I need to say something about this, because I noticed, this man who was religious just kind of going into more kind of 2 cars and a house and show it all, a lot of furniture and so on. And I said, look, if my dad one day dies and I haven't said anything to him, I will feel guilty, because I have a duty as a son, an intelligent son, to say something to him about this. So it took me quite a courage to call him up and have a 1-hour conversation with him, telling him about the importance of bringing God into your life and the regret that you will go through. Last breath, if you haven't made a connection to God, it won't matter. Any of it won't matter. Only last breath you will be between you and God itself. So I told him all this. And after 1 hour, I felt so, like a whole bag of bricks had been dropped off my shoulders, because I, as a son, have told him what I needed to tell him. Now, this happened a couple of years ago. Did he follow suit? No. So far, maybe a little bit, but see, it doesn't really matter. I've done my part. So what was that done for nothing? No. At least one person got healed. You've done your part. There's no guarantee with all of your intelligence that you will affect the other person. But now you can breathe easier. And that ironically makes you more influential and makes your connection a lot healthier next time. And you don't have to have this unconscious pressure. I should say something to my dad. I should say something. Yeah, he's talking about business and wealth and this. I should say it. See, that whole pressure has gone. Why? Because you took the initiative. Therefore, it's not a waste if you take your part and you do your part and you see no benefit. With confidence, you can stand straight and say, I have done my part. And that brings you cheer and joy and strength. Lorena.
And he may have that thought at the end of his life, that conversation he had with you about God.
Yeah.
So it's not wasted. That might come into his mind in those last moments. I remember Andre saying this.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's never wasted.
It's never wasted. And in crucial moments, you have amazing insights and amazing memory. It just comes to you in those crucial moments. That's why they say you have a flashback you know, before death, your life comes to you.
What was his reaction when you said these things to him? Did he argue or?
No, he was no argument at all. He was very compliant and listening and tell me more, son, and okay. So very nice, you know, dad listening. So we have a nice relationship. Took a breath, a new breath that I haven't had before because it was held in me for years. So that's the importance of healing, taking the step to heal.
How long ago?
5 years ago. This is the next part of the verse. Having seen Brahman, that means when the self is known, even longing goes away. So what does this imply, having seen Brahman? Does that mean that if you put a word, a qualifier here, having seen, what would that qualifier be? Most likely
understood.
Having understood, but also when you know the reality, even the longing goes away. So Krishna is saying two things here. Number one, that nobody gets born enlightened. Nobody gets born emotionally intelligent. Nobody gets born intellectually smart. It is a skill that you and I develop through hard, persistent, non-ending work. Having gained that knowledge and through your hard work, then having seen Brahman as a result of your work, even longing goes away. So this means that you have to appreciate the fact that no, you don't get born wise. No one has a head start here, by the way. Just because someone's teaching Vedanta, it doesn't mean they're born, you know, smart. They just work at it very hard. But we all get there, don't we, eventually? So it's not a competition at all. And the second implication of this verse is that having seen Brahman, even longing goes away. That means you have to now put a filler in. What kind of longing goes away?
It goes a shloka from the Upanishad. I forget which one.
Please do.
Vidyade hridaya granthihi shudyade natra samsayaha. That once the realization dawns upon you of Brahman, it breaks all the knots in your heart.
In your heart, yeah. Sure, yeah.
And then all the doubts and suspicions fall away.
Yeah, good.
Doesn't it echo that?
Yeah, very perfect quote. Wow, it's amazing he's able to draw from the Upanishads. So this word hridaya, this knot of the heart, it's a metaphorical, poetical phrase for your buddhi. So it breaks this notion of your being as good as the body mind. So in that sense, you are now, right, you recognize yourself to be Brahman itself, to be the whole. So in that sense, that whole knot that's been binding you to this body and mind, which is called the ignorance, so the synonym for knot is the ignorance, that has been destroyed, it has been removed through self-knowledge. Now, when it's removed by the means of self-knowledge, even longing goes away. So now you have to, again, be careful here. All longing? What kind of longing? Right? Unhealthy longing, right? Longing for those little toys that you just see them. They are what they are. They're neither good, neither bad. They're like the sky. They're like the mango. Is it moksha that makes the longing go away? Or the longing went away before moksha?
Before moksha. Vivek, Vairagya, Shat Sampatti, and the fourth one, Mumukshitvam. So yeah. Vairagya is, so you have to accomplish this before you become candidate for moksha.
Okay, now I'm going to challenge that. So we said before moksha, but then why does the verse say, having seen Brahman, even longing goes away? So something does go away. Some longing for something does go away. What could that be?
Longing for mumukshitva go away.
Okay, good for more seeking go away. For what else does it go away? Let's put brackets, for something.
Material things?
Well, I mean, material things, you still need them. You still surround yourself with material things. Anything else?
Yeah, the very thought of longing itself goes away. You have no desires, no ambitions, no requirements, nothing. You are happy in whatever you are.
I mean, that is your nature. But as long as there's a body mind, there is desire.
There's no longing.
Yeah, but see, as long as there's a body mind, even as a wise person, there is longing, there is desire. there is aspiration, there are goals, even just to teach, even to talk to your students, even to want to help other people kind of make it on their own, to help them. That is a longing, by the way.
Would it be longing for moksha?
Closest one so far. So longing for moksha definitely goes away. Lorena?
I would say the seeker and the sought is resolved. There's only one.
Okay.
So you realize that, and then that's the longing that goes away. The seeker and the sought is one.
Okay, it's understood cognitively that it is always one. Okay, even though there's an appearance like we're two different things.
Yeah.
Okay. Ricky?
Referring back to some of the previous verses, also the monkey mind tends to lower.
That's because before moksha, you've done your work, like Gautama said. So all of those things have lowered that monkey mind for sure.
Rebirth?
Best one so far. So look at this. Suppose I want to give you right now, I offer you another life, another good life. And I'll offer you a next life, and it's going to be perfect. You're going to be, this is where you can just let your desires run wild, let your imagination run wild. You're the queen, everyone's bowing, worshiping you, right? You got all of the luxuries in the world. You will be the most likable person. You have all the skills in the world. You will, have, memory. You can memorize anything. You can recall anything. You're better than AI. And I offer you this next life. Do you have a longing for that?
The law of diminishing returns will apply there.
So no, right? You shake. Why not? I mean, are you crazy? Yeah, I'm gonna.
You're not bound by karma. You realize you're not bound by karma, artha, dhamma, and karma.
Yeah. So what if I give you? What if you're Brahmaji himself? Okay, you're gonna be Brahmaji. You're gonna be the ruler. Brahmaloka is yours, ultimate bliss, undescribable. Forget about even me trying to describe it. What about now? You want that? Next life.
Now that's gonna end.
Are you longing for that?
There's also duality then. Then you're separating yourself from Brahmaji.
Hey, listen to the question. You're getting like my words, just an insult to the amount of bliss you will have. You're the ruler of time, space, everything, and it's just beyond unparalleled, undescribable joy. I'm giving you that. Are you longing for that?
You're still bound by duration of time.
Yeah. See, so
you're still in the cycle.
Having seen Brahman, even longing goes away. Now it makes sense. Therefore, so the person who shakes their head no, see, you have to it's amazing, right? Where is this coming from? Like, I just offered you the best of the best, and you're saying no. So this is wisdom. So you've come to see the limitations of even Brahmaji, because it still resolves, comes out, resolves, comes out. And Brahmaji himself also is replaceable. Amazing class. For that reason, we will all get rewarded with the next verse, verse 61. Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita.
May one who is endowed with discrimination, keeping all the sense organs in one's hands, sit in contemplation of me. For the one who has all the sense organs under control, the knowledge is well established.
Let's suppose that we are not yet there, suppose, hypothetically speaking. And we have, or maybe we are there, right? It doesn't really matter. And we want to master our senses slightly. The question then is, what is the means by which we can master our senses? And this is verse 61. So it says here, Yasya vase indriyani. So what it says is the one who has, he also used the word sarvani. So the one who has sarvani, all sense organs under control, they can move through this world. Again, you have to question this. One who has their sense organs or all sense organs under control. If you take this literally, it's not possible. Because again, your mind is not going to be 24/7 on Ishvara. If you have to do your work at work, right, you have to attend to your patient, right? You have to attend to your patient. It's not going to be Ishvara all the time. You're not going to have your senses constantly, strictly focused on one thing at a time. Therefore, you have to manage your sense organs. And how is this done? Katha Upanishad is a nice metaphor of what it means to manage or be the driver of your sense organs. And he uses the metaphor or the imagery of a charioteer. The chariot, and the charioteer is the driver, right? Your buddhi, the one who thinks. The chariot is the body, and the chariot is the reins, those ropes onto the horses' necks. The reins are connected to the horses, and who's got control of the reins? You, the owner. And thereby the reins is the mind, and the mind is attached to the horses, which is the five senses, five sense organs. So this means that if you, the driver, the owner of that thing, doesn't have a purpose of what is to be done in this life, doesn't have a larger vision of life, doesn't have an instruction manual of the terrain upon which the chariot is guided through the five horses, then what's going to happen? You know a horse, how powerful a horse is? It's got a lot of power. But how little does it take to move the horse left to right? Just a little gentle pull left, right, the horse easily moves. So this means that you being the charioteer, the driver, holding the mind, and the mind's holding the five senses, you being the driver, you have to make judicious decisions because it is in your hands. You're given this privilege to guide your vehicle to where it needs to go. Otherwise, if the vehicle is not guided, what will guide your vehicle, your chariot? The senses will guide them because the senses have a life of their own, don't they? They like tasty things. They like things that smell nice. They like things that look good. They like feelings. They like textures. The senses, horses have a life of their own. We all can relate to this. Thereby, if you let those horses run, then do you get a chance to develop your individuality, to ask questions? What do I want in this life? What do I, the driver, want in this life? Like, what is my strengths? Where do I stand for? Who am I? Are you going to ask that? No. Why? Because who are you following? You're following the horses. So this means and do the horses take you places that to get you to ask those questions? No, the only thing that the horses get you to ask is, how can I have more of this? How can I kind of buy this, own this? Where can we exchange this for something else? Get rid of this, right? That's the only, so the inquiry is consistent with where your senses take you. But what you have to do is you have to reverse that whole role. You are the driver of the five senses. Suppose you are the driver. Does that mean that the horses will follow you? Suppose you understand this and you're, I got this, Andre, we've been speaking about this. I am the driver, I'm the owner, I've got the horses, I've got the little push and pull left and right, no problems. Is that easy? Is it like that? Not at all. Thereby, even if the horses are under your control, it's not an overnight thing. Now, as Radhika said, why do the horses take you to those desirable objects? Because you've been doing that for a long time. And through a long time, you've built a super highway of habit, entrenched, very entrenched, and so easy to stay in that path. You don't have to swirl left or right. And thereby, you have to make a decision. And you have to say to yourself, this is a little inquiry, introversion. Turtle, what's the real value of this object? What is it about it that's really attractive? Let me ask you this. What kind of objects do you easily spend time with? What's unique about those objects that you spend time with? What do they have that causes you to effortlessly focus and spend time with them?
Value.
Hmm?
You value them?
You value them. If you value something, what does that mean when you value something? You have a life for it. What else does it mean to say I have a value for an object?
You appreciate it.
You appreciate it deeply. Okay. Nitin?
It gives you a satisfaction.
It gives you what?
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction, definitely. Fulfillment. Sandra?
Your time will be invested in that.
And thereby it makes it important enough. It affirms that if my time is invested, it must be therefore important. So it kind of reinforces that cycle.
Yeah.
Okay. So who has a problem with sex? Does anyone have a problem giving value to sex? Does anyone have a problem focusing on that? No. We all like it naturally. Why? Because there's a lot of value attached to that. Does anyone have to tell you you have to focus, you have to look deeply, you have to sort of, just really pay attention? No, you naturally value something, and because you value it, you spend natural time at it. So could an object be like that? Could an object have equal value like sex does? Absolutely. Sex comes naturally. That's why it's so effortless for everyone. But an object that we haven't yet learned value, you have to develop it. That's the only difference. Therefore, you have to know what's the real value for an object in spending time in the Gita for moksha. What's the real value for moksha? You have to know that. And that takes some reflection, some time. Thereby, the question then comes is, what's the highest purpose towards which you can take your chariot to? That you can use this chariot, the horses, the reins, and the charioteer. What's the highest purpose for which you can use it for?
Moksha.
Why? Because through your use of this chariot, you have come to see that I am stuck in this reality, which cannot quite provide me the eternal satisfaction that I'm seeking. I'm literally stuck. I want to get out, but I am stuck in a reality that I'm not at ease with. And thereby, knowledge becomes more and more important. And how does it become important? Overnight? No. You have used your chariot with those 5 horses, which have initially led you to things that are naturally valuable, such as relationships, which is nice. But through the experience of using this chariot for things, you have come to see that has to be more to life. So you come to a point, and how do you come to a point like going to the airport? When you go to the airport and you have to catch a flight, where is your flight when you come 2 hours before? Is it on the board? No. Now, what do you do in the airport while your flight is not on the board? Is there any sense of urgency to do anything, to go anywhere? You got like 3 hours. No, you do whatever you want. You go and talk if you want, go play some games, go get some massage chair, go to get some coffee, go get some lunch, go on your laptop, no problems. But then you see your flight appear, and then you go, okay, now it's there. You notice it on your periphery. You notice life's limitations on your periphery. And you're like, oh, it's no problem. I can still talk and get massage chair and speak people and, speak to them and do whatever I want. And then you see your flight, your call for moksha going further up and up and up. And then when there is a departure, it's all the way on top of the board. What do? I tell you, you could be having in that moment a very fantastic lunch, but it's departure. And then what does your brain do? Departure means there's still a long line and I don't want to be the last person. There's still about 20 minutes. But at the same time, I definitely have to drop a lot of things, a lot of priorities out of my life and get my things done as soon as possible. Whatever you're doing, finish it as soon as possible. I have to get to my departure. Now, when there's a final call at the top, right at the top, what do? You could be taking a phone number of the hottest girl you've ever seen your entire life. You won't even take the whole phone number. You will just quit halfway. Sorry, I have to go. That means you drop every temptation, everything that is on your mind, all the important things, or seemingly so that you thought were, you drop them all and you rush because it is your final call. The urgency is so high that you feel it at every fiber of your body. It is the priority number 1. and you go to that place in the Bhagavad Gita class, by the way, and you listen and you make sure you understand what is to be understood according to Krishna's words, because Krishna's clarion call is so important that he is offering you not Brahmaji, he's offering you the whole thing, which you just happen to be already. And thereby, this journey starts out slow, and then as it goes up, this is called maturity through lifetimes, and eventually in one life, you see it's at the top. In fact, it's always been at the top, but I thought it was at the bottom. But at the same time, it's a really interesting metaphor. While at the airport, what do? You have to talk to people. Why? Because they trigger you. They show you your unconsciousness, your unconscious patterns driving you. Therefore, you go, oh, before I get to the final call, I've got to stay here and spend some time with this person and figure out, something's triggering me. I have to figure that out. Because if you go to the final call, you're angry, does the gatekeeper let you in? You're angry and you're comparing yourself to everyone. What are these people? No, it says no. So you go back to the airport, you'll catch the next flight. So you have to go back to those people and talk and get those relative patterns resolved. Now, those relative patterns that are resolved, how are they resolved? It says here, yukta. That means your mind is endowed with discriminative capacity, discriminative ability. In modern language, we call this critical thinking. And it says, therefore, may you be a yukta. That means the one who has critical thinking. May you be a critical thinker, says the Lord. And what does it mean to be a yukta? Well, it's a nice example of an eagle. What does an eagle do? Flies high, sees what? If you fly high, you see what? Big picture, right? But what else does the eagle do? See the details. Is it just one? It's both. Is it just extrovert, introvert? It's both. Is it just, do I see the big picture? I also see the details. This is the wise person. So like an eagle, you're able to see the big picture. What is all of this about? What's the purpose of life? But also when it's time to hone in on certain things, you have no problems doing that. Thereby, the more your intellect is able to see the big picture, see the details when called for, respond to situations without the pressures of your little fancies, what should happen and what shouldn't happen. Do what is to be done. The more it's like Krishna's intellect. Now, how many challenges did Krishna have in his life? Let's see if he's any more lucky than we are. So, Krishna was born in a dungeon. Were you born in the dungeon? Okay. He was then escorted to foster parents, and his real parents were still in the dungeon. Is that pleasant? Even just bearing that alone would give you personality complexes. Hey, so where are your original parents? They're in a dungeon. While he was, I don't know, small or big, what happened? Kansa tried to assassinate him through several methods. First, there was Putana. She wanted to poison him with breast milk. Then there was Trinavarta, was like a whirlwind. Then there was Aghasura, is a snake. Did someone try to kill you 3 times so far? No. Okay, so Krishna has advantage here. Then there was jealousy, strong jealousy and insult from Shishupala, because Rukmini wanted to marry Shishupala, but she took the wing underneath Krishna. So that means Shishupala, who was a cousin of Krishna, was very angry. So he was insulting the Lord. Then Krishna had a community called the Yadava community, and he was constantly attacked by Jarasandha, who he had to then move his wonderful community, which was thriving and prosperous, from Mathura to Dwaraka. And so imagine that you build a community that's helping people, you're doing all good things, and it's all thriving, people are being nurtured and being given a lot of love. And some hippies come on there, they start to poop on your backyard, they start to turn on loud music, and you can't get these guys out. And you have to move your entire community away. And then he had to watch his cousins kill each other. Does this sound like an easy life? He was amidst drama, and his intellect was still cheerful, discerning, sharp. Therefore, to such a wise person, he is or she is prajna pratishtita, says the verse. What is this? Knowledge is firm in all situations. This is also said in verse 58. Prajna pratishtita, not just at home or at work, in all situations in general. Sense organs are under control. My discernment is under control. Next week, we will talk about how you lose your discretion, your discernment, the sequence by which you first see an object, and eventually anger develops, desire develops, attachment develops, you lose your memory, you forget about Gita teachings, you become an ordinary fella, you regress to your basic conditioning, and we will see the sequence of how this happens. What happens when the buddhi, the intellect, lacks purpose?
It's directed by the horses or the senses. It goes everywhere and nowhere.
Doesn't reach its destination.
Doesn't reach
the
its
intended
destination.
destination.
Yeah, it goes around circles, zigzags, inefficient path. What do you think made Krishna's intellect so brilliant?
Maya Teeth, he's beyond Maya.
Yeah, okay, but at the level of the empirical person, because he still had a normal intellect like you and I, what made his intellect so sharp or brilliant?
I think he grew from his challenges.
Yeah, that's a good answer. He learned from his challenges. He was participant in life. What else?
From day one, he was born. He came through the fire tests. Every day was a test of fire for him. So he became honed in from the fire test that nobody could face and nobody could ever face again.
Okay, okay. Lorena?
He could see things objectively, put the correct value on situations.
Can we say his punyas of his previous births, which he had accumulated over the years, if he did so?
Well, that is disputable because we say he's an avatara, so he was not really carrying.
So if he was an avatara, that means he was born.
Yeah, he was born. He was born. However, he didn't carry any complexions with him. So, so in that sense, he didn't carry those, those complexions that kind of dumb down the intellect. So in that sense, but let's talk more practical. Give me one more practical. What made his intellect so discerning and cheerful amidst all these challenges?
His upbringing and his situation around him.
His upbringing, so it contributed. Okay, but give me something more practical. Bhuvana?
I'm reminded of a Swami. I forget his name.
Okay.
Bhavananda, I think. He says he refused to be miserable.
Okay, so let's refuse to be miserable. That's good. Bhuvana?
I think he knew the purpose for his birth. He kind of knew what he was there for, and he was fixed on his goal.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's very nice. That's very nice. So he had a certain vision, a certain goal, a certain fallback, a certain trajectory, and let everything else give me challenges, but I don't waver of my goal. It's very nice. Carrie?
I think he's just said it, but I think he had a very concentrated mind. He was able to have concentration.
Yeah, it reminds me of Vivekananda. They also say he had a very concentrated mind. He was able to accomplish so much, and he died at 32, and yet he, left such an incredible mark. And he was reading books and memorizing them, and he said he owns it to his ability to concentrate on one thing at a time, deeply concentrate.
Right values.
He had the right values, so thereby he was guided towards the right things at the right time. He didn't waste time on those other, things that don't really, like the 80-20 principle, right? For you only, 80% of the results come from only 20% of your activities. So that means only 20% of the activities that you do throughout the day produces most of those efficient, deep, purposeful, tangible results that you admire. So you have to find out what those 20% are. So perhaps you could say that Krishna knew that because of his values. Vik?
Just to build on what Bhuvana said, something about knowing his swadharma, being firm in who he is, what he's meant to do, and in that strong foundation, he was able to carry out what he needed to do.
Indeed, indeed. So we can see how important it is to know, what do you stand for? Why are you here? What is your strong suit? And spending more time on that rather than complaining about the weaknesses and those things that you're not good at. I'm not good at a lot of things, but I don't care. I'm good at certain things, and that's what I care. What are you not good at? Leave that alone. What are you good at? Develop that. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.